What's up YouTube community, Bernd here, welcome back to another video lesson. In this one I want to show you 5 of my absolute favorite pentatonic scale tricks that will hopefully spice up your playing a little bit from now on. My personal goal is to provide you with the right tools, inspiration and motivation to come up with some really cool pentatonic shred licks until the end of this video. So let's get started right away. Once again, the biggest challenge with this video for me was including all of those 5 tricks I want to show you in just one lick. So the practical example for this week is pretty hard, but as always we will dissect it part by part and go into extreme detail with every single section. So to start out, here's the full lick performed for you in 2 different tempos. As always, you can find the tabs, guitar profiles and a special practice backing track for this section on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Bernd. In case you didn't already know, I upload these files for every single YouTube lesson that I publish here, and I also give feedback and individual coaching to each patron via email. So as you could see, we focus on the very popular and basic A minor pentatonic scale position, starting from the 5th fret, the root note A on the low E string. So we are playing the notes A, the root note here on the 5th fret of the low E string, C, the minor 3rd, D, the perfect 4th, E, perfect 5th, G, D minor 7th, and that's actually it. We only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes right here before they are repeated in the next octave. So I guess we are all familiar with this shape. This is the super basic scale position we all started out with in the beginning, I guess, so my main challenge was making it interesting with different concepts that I applied. The first one was grouping the notes in an odd way. So naturally we're playing groups of 4 very often. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Or sometimes groups of 3 when we're playing triplets. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and so on. And that's nothing too interesting, I'm sure you heard that millions of times already. So one thing we could do to immediately spice things up is play groups of 5, for example. In the practical example I was playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ending with the root note A once again. So a little bit faster. A common misconception is that groups of 5 are always quintuplets. In our case we are just playing regular 16th notes, but we are grouping them in groups of 5. With 16th note quintuplets we would have 5 notes on every beat when the metronome is counting quarter notes for us. So 1, 2, 3, 4. But in our case we're playing 16th notes. If we switch to thinking in 8th notes real quick, the difference becomes quite obvious. That's quite a challenge for the brain. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Another thing that I'm doing here is utilizing the economy picking approach that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. So instead of playing continuous down and up strokes with alternate picking, I'm playing downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, downstroke. So here we have 2 downstrokes in a row. And here once again, so. That actually has multiple benefits. It allows me to accent the first note of each group of 5, since it's a downstroke now. So it helps me to stay in time, and obviously the string transition becomes much easier. So once again performed a bit faster. As you can see, my right hand is staying quite relaxed when I'm playing like that. If you want to learn more about economy picking, make sure to check out the lesson I recorded on that. The next trick is really cool. Here we are thinking in octaves and we create a small arpeggio shape based on the pentatonic scale box. We are playing and we are tapping the perfect 5th E. and then we are switching to the next octave. And then we are going back down again, playing pull-offs. This section is pretty hard to play because we need a strong left hand to perform the hammer-ons, pull-offs and the stretching. And we also don't want any noise from the transitioning between the different strings. So when we continue moving this pattern through different octaves, this is just the exact same shape that we are playing here on the low E string. And when you spend enough time working on them individually, you can start combining them. For me, it's a little bit easier to perform them in this position. The stretching is a little bit easier that way. For the third and one of my favorite tricks, we extend the classic 2-note per string pentatonic shape to a 3-note per string shape. So I was playing D here on the 10th fret of the high E string, C, A, then A once again, here on the 10th fret of the B string. So we have a note repetition in here, which sounds pretty crazy as soon as we speed it up. Then I was playing G, right here on the 8th fret of the B string, E, then I was playing the blue note, E flat, here on the 8th fret, which sounds always very interesting. Then I was descending to D and C, and then I was going back up again. So this section performed a bit slower. I was playing alternate picking, continuous down and up strokes. You can hear the note repetition in there, it sounds pretty crazy. And when we speed it up, with trick number 4, we are finally also utilizing our theory knowledge by including the characteristic Dorian interval in the pentatonic scale. So we are playing F sharp on the 7th fret of the B string instead of G, which is the classic Dorian interval of A Dorian, D major 6th, instead of playing the minor 7th. And we are playing so we are ending in a cool Dorian voicing to give the lick some additional modal color, so to say. I always really love to mix the sound of the modes with the pentatonic scale to give my pentatonic scale licks a bit of color and a more interesting sound. And for the last trick, we could also come up with some arpeggio shapes, thinking in that classic A minor pentatonic scale box here on the 5th fret to include some sweep picking in the solo. That one is a bit tricky because we have to roll our ring finger first and then the index finger, because we don't want the notes to overlap right here. But it's a pretty cool minor arpeggio that also has that kind of pentatonic vibe, since we are only utilizing notes we can find within the pentatonic scale. We are not playing the major second, for example, or the minor 6th F. So I think you can hear the pentatonic sound pretty well in there. So with this one, I always want you to remember to search for interesting arpeggio shapes within the scales you're working in. You can come up with a lot of really cool custom arpeggio shapes and chord voicings if you think that way. And then I couldn't resist, I just ended it with the classic A minor arpeggio shape. Let's end this lesson by listening to the entire section once again, now that you have all that additional knowledge. So that's it for this lesson. I really hope that you enjoyed my 5 favorite pentatonic scale tricks. In the end, make sure to subscribe to join this YouTube community today. Leave a like in case you learned something new today, or if you just enjoyed watching, or a comment below this video in case I can answer any questions for you. I will see you in the next video lesson next week. Until then, have fun practicing and all the best.